I still can't cook, but I can tell when life is trying to force me into a new season. Let's talk about it. Change. Not the dramatic movie montage kind, the quieter kind. The kind where your routines stop fitting you, your body starts changing, sometimes on purpose and sometimes not. Where the version of your life that used to feel comforting suddenly starts feeling too small. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in life, not because they want to stay stuck, but because familiarity feels safer than change. Even when the routine is making you miserable, and even when the relationship has expired, even when you know deep down that you've outgrown something. There's this weird period in life where you can feel your life changing before your actual life catches up with you. That space can feel lonely and uncomfortable, truthfully. So today we're talking about it. How to recognize when you're entering a new season of life, why people cling to routines that no longer serve them, how to navigate change with grace, and how to stop confusing comfort for happiness. Because growth rarely feels graceful while it's happening. So this is your guide to navigating through life's changes without resisting every single part of it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Still Can't Cook. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars and follow us on YouTube. Today's episode is for anyone who feels like they're standing between versions of themselves. Maybe your life looks completely different than it did a year ago. Maybe nothing has technically changed, but internally it feels completely different. Or maybe you're just realizing that your routines, your habits, or people you once depended on just don't fit anymore. And that feeling is uncomfortable because humans love familiarity. We love routines, identity, and certainty. But life does not stay the same forever, and neither do we. So today we're talking about the seasonal shifts in life, why change can feel so emotionally destabilizing, and how to move forward without feeling like you're losing yourself in the process. Because sometimes the hardest part of change is admitting that your old life doesn't fit you anymore. No one talks about how weird it feels to outgrow something that used to make you feel comfortable. I had a very hard time letting go of my old life, my old apartment, my old neighborhood, everything that came with. I moved into Grand Street in 1997. I was 26 years old. Wow, that was quick math. And I had a whole life in that apartment. But at some point, it became clear that life was going one way. Friends were moving, getting married, moving into different apartments, changing careers. And I stayed in that apartment and I stayed at the same job. I don't know if it was a moment or it was, it kind of felt like a moment. It kind of felt like I had this one, like, whoa, everything around me is, moving or shifting and my day-to-day life had changed so much. I had a new relationship. I had new friends. I had a lot of things outside shift and change. And I still walked to that apartment, put the key in the door and went into that space and could be myself when everything was the way I remembered it, or maybe the way I wanted it. Wow, that was pretty heavy. The thing about Grand Street for me is that it kind of embodied a part of my life, or a time capsule. It was a time capsule of my life that I wasn't ready to let go of. So I think there was a bit of internal battle where my other friends were moving to bigger apartments, leaving the neighborhood, like I said, getting married and doing the things they were doing. And for me, Soho was, the neighborhood itself was where I feel like I kind of grew up, and I planted seeds there, and I was so not ready to move and be bigger than that life. Because I remember when I first moved into my first own apartment, living by myself was in itself a tremendous achievement. I was so proud of myself. And then I was scared to death because I'm a nervous Nelly and I was afraid of every creak and I had a police lock. I had all the double locks on the door. Meanwhile, I'm living in Soho in a 5-floor walk up. If you get up here to rob me, you can have everything. You're going to be winded anyway. Well, I'll give you my inhaler before you take anything. But I was afraid of everything. But I adjusted to being alone. I adjusted to life. I adjusted. I got used to it. I enjoyed my quiet time. I enjoyed my space. But then all of a sudden it was like, everybody's going somewhere and I'm still here. My dad passed away. I'm still here. The world outside changed and I was still there. And it was at that point that I was like, okay, I think I need to kind of look for a bigger apartment. When your shoes, are flowing out of your closet and your sweaters are in the refrigerator and I use the stove to keep my jeans. I outgrew the apartment and I outgrew that part of my life, which will always be one of the most incredible parts of my entire life. It's a big deal having your first apartment. It's a big deal, having your friends over for the first time when it's your space, picking a couch. It sounds like a little thing, but when you do it for yourself and you get to design your own apartment. It was, 500 square foot, but guess what? Couches still cost a lot of money. I was pretty proud of myself. So kind of walking away from that part for me, felt like I was giving up my childhood, giving up so much a part of what got me to where I was when I needed to make the change. And I now look back and I was so grateful for that time, and so grateful that it was an ease out. I didn't, knock on wood, nothing. I left when I wanted to leave. There was no force out of the apartment for any reason. So when I did decide to move out of the apartment, it was a very big shift for me to open myself up to what was going to be next. Because in letting go of that, one door closes. This is like an actual, wasn't metaphorical. It was actually shutting the door on Grand Street and moving into a new apartment. And with that, I had to be a different person. Kelley on Grand Street and then Kelley on 4th Avenue for 2 years was all in preparation for Kelley here today. And it took a long time for me to go, oh, this is not, I was uncomfortable and I would be moody and I didn't know what was going on. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to recognize when you've outgrown a part of your life that you've loved for so long. It was really my safe zone. So leaving Soho, I think for me was probably the biggest transition, where it was like a real leap into what's next. When something used to comfort you, it's really hard to admit that it no longer works. I think people get emotionally stuck in places much longer than they should because it feels safer than uncertainty. I certainly did. I certainly did. God, I was scared. Change requires grieving, even when it's positive. You can want a new chapter while still mourning the old one. Sometimes the hardest part is realizing that you're not actually unhappy because life is bad. You're unhappy because you stopped evolving while your life stayed the same. In my whole neighborhood, Grand Street, the hotel, my brother owned a restaurant across the street, my brother owned a bar across the street. I had a tab at the local deli. I had my favorite restaurants. I felt the growing pains. I knew that it was time, but I couldn't get myself to take the plunge. Change has never been easy for me. And I am someone who leaves claw marks when everything I let go of. I always have. Leaving Soho was that for me because everything changed. It wasn't just the apartment. I worked at the hotel for 25 years, which if you know the neighborhood, I'll explain it to you. I lived literally 20 feet from my job. Directly across the street from my apartment was the bar my brother owned, where my parents were every day. The deli was underneath my house, like on the other corner. It was like everything, my whole life was in that area. And so leaving it opened me up to this whole other new life, which was, believe it or not, Miss Independent, leaning into being someone's girlfriend and really leaning in to what it means to be in someone else's life, which was never comfortable for me. I am such a creature of habit. It's like the fact that I was able to leave Grand Street, move to 4th Avenue for a short time, and really lean into being a girlfriend and all that meant. Like, I traveled when he wanted to travel. I did. My life became his life. I became an extension of him. But it happened. But wow, did I have a hard time making that adjustment. I could do the life with him and then come back home and be in Grand Street, because that's who Kelley is. Kelley lives on Grand Street. And then I could go fly, let me out, and I could do on a boat, and I come back to Grand Street in my little apartment and just be home and feel safe. Again, another version of my closet that I used to hide in when I was a child. There is for me, being at home in my own space was very comforting. So to give that up, oh my Lord, I was so off kiltered. I was so anxiety ridden in giving it up. I mean, so much so that I didn't give it up. I kept the apartment. So much so that I still have the lease for Grand Street. I say as if I can't just walk in the door. I actually can. No, I have a tenant there. I have a person who lives there. It's a pay it a tear. I don't know how to say it. It's that thing. It's the other apartment. I still have the apartment, but I don't go in it, but I have it for the sake of loving it, because I don't let go of anything. This is the thing. I'm one of these people who hold on to their old lives. But Grand Street, leaving Grand Street and no longer living in Grand Street was a tremendous transition because it also meant I was leaving everything familiar around me, from the local deli to the people on the corner to everything. You know, I created a neighborhood and I created a home for myself. And then I had to walk away from that. And it was hard, but I'm glad I did, because what came next was, you know, now I'm more exactly where I'm supposed to be. But there was a point there where, man, I could feel myself outgrowing my space, if that makes sense. And really, figuratively and literally, I was outgrowing my space. It's a beautiful thing in life to be able to move on, because it would be a terrible shame had I never left Grand Street, had I never took the step. God, I can't even imagine what that would look like. I'd have a lot more money. God, I would have saved so much money. Man, I would be drowning in clothes. It'd be me with my head out at the top of a pile of sweaters. Kelley's podcast taking place on top of a pile of clothes on Grand Street. Wouldn't even fit in my apartment on Grand Street. But anyway, I'm glad that I made the move. It was not without a lot of stress and sadness. And I don't know if you've seen the last episode of the show Friends, but in the last episode of the show Friends, they all leave their key, which we never see them use, which is the point if you didn't know that. No one ever uses a key in Friends, but at the last episode, they all put their key on the counter and they leave Rachel and Monica's. It was Monica and Chandler's by the time they were leaving it, because they were married and they lived there, and they all left their keys on the counter. And I really felt like that when I was leaving Grand Street. I felt like I was leaving the key for the person who was moving in, and the door unlocked because it was empty. And I left, and I had my little Friends moment all by myself. I was all of them all by myself. So there was a whole transition for me, right? It was like this whole thing. And I think we all have it at different points. I can only talk about me. I knew things were different. I knew my vision was bigger. You know, I used to be okay just eating at the same restaurant, going to the same deli, going back to my apartment, having the same friend group. I was such a creature of habit. It's just but then all of a sudden it wasn't comfortable anymore. The things that used to bring us comfort shifting when that happened. And it was like, this doesn't make me feel as good anymore. Like that, those are notes you have to take in life. And I did take them. I knew it was happening. And then like just a general life. I don't know if it happens for everyone at certain times, women at different ages than men or whatever, but I really think looking back on it now, it was a whole change in my life, in my system, in the things that I valued, in the places I want to go, in the life I wanted to welcome people into. I had outgrown it. All of it, every part of where I was, from my job to my apartment to everything that was who I wasn't. I was shedding myself. So my snake skin was Soho, and I had to slowly evolve out of it. And even going back now, because look, I can walk there. It's not like I moved to Australia. A bit dramatic, aren't I? The apartment I still have, the neighborhood I can still walk to. Really hard to leave. So for anyone who doesn't live in New York, and hopefully there's a lot of you, because all of my millions of viewers all over the world, I live in the financial district, which is a good 10-minute walk from where I used to live. And all the places that I used to go, excluding my brother's place, are still there. So I still know a lot of people in Soho. And as I said, I still continue to have my apartment in Soho. I just do not live in it. I keep it for posterity because I love that apartment. And it means a lot to me. And I want to pass it on to people who will get from it what I got from it. And I think I have. So in reality, I'm very close to where I used to live. Grand Street is only probably a 10, 15-minute walk from where I currently live. But 10 or 15 minutes in New York City is an entirely different neighborhood with an entirely different deli, an entirely different grocery store, different dry cleaners. It's all different. So it's like I actually moved across the world in reality, 10 minutes away. But it feels like across the world to me, creature who doesn't like change. So what I learned is that even the smallest change can feel grand. Do you know what I did there? Grand. And usually before people actually change something, life starts sending signals first. Sometimes life changes loudly. Breakups, moves, job losses, big milestones. But sometimes it changes quietly. You suddenly feel disconnected from routines you used to love. You feel emotionally exhausted by things that once excited you. You crave different environments, different conversations, different energies. Because honestly, that can be terrifying because it creates uncertainty. I put a lot of time and energy into building my space for myself when I was living in Soho. I came from a very small neighborhood in Brooklyn where everyone knew each other. It was a neighborhood, and I tried to rebuild that for myself in a Manhattan neighborhood. And I was blessed to be able to do that. And I think it's more who you are than where you are. And I brought a little bit of Brooklyn with me. And an ode to my parents, I became friends with the local deli owners. I became friends with the people in the neighborhood. I had a tab. It's unheard of in the city. Except for in like neighborhoods, family neighborhoods, which Soho was not. But when I got there 100 years ago, it was. And the older people in the neighborhood would remind you of that all the time. But when I lived there, it was younger people, transient. And I made a little life for myself. I had my regular go-tos. So the discomfort for me in letting go of those things and recognizing that, I liked walking down the street and having people know my name. I worked at a very prominent hotel in the same block I lived on. My brother owned a bar on the block I lived on. Everyone knew me. So part of my leaving that was also leaving that version of me and having to recreate again who I am in a 10-minute walk. But it really is a whole new neighborhood. I had to start completely over and meet the neighbors and make friends and find the deli and find the restaurant. And that for me, as simple as it might be for other people, I am not Dora the Explorer. I am not the adventurous type. I mean, I am if it's really nice. But I'm not someone who's like, I don't wing it a lot. I'm definitely a little bit like this. I don't know if that's a word, but if you can't see, I'm shaking my hand in my hands. Yeah, I get a little bit stressed out by change. So leaving it all behind and moving on was a complicated thing for me. And I did it all while in a relationship. And I think it would have happened anyway. Naturally, it would have happened. I would have gradually left. But it kind of happened a little bit faster because I was in this relationship and because I leaned into this girlfriend role. And, if you've not heard all about On Again, Off Again, go back and watch every single episode, please. But it was a trip. It was a lot. It helped me. It made it less scary because I was in a relationship, but it also kind of put it a little bit in a blender, I think. I don't know if I would have gone as fast had there not be On Again, Off Again. I struggled with change, is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I struggled with change because I made a whole thing for myself. It's like building a little dollhouse and then having to knock it down. Oh, don't you feel sorry for me? That's kind of what it was. It was like I had my own little dollhouse, my little neighborhood, all my friends. What are those? Like, the little dollhouses that have neighborhoods. I know it's not just a dollhouse. Like a Weeble Wobbles people. Like they all knew each other. That's what I had. I had like a bunch of friends and then I left them all. And I left them all for him. And then he left me. Fun story. Before I was leaving, when I knew that life, I was like, okay, something's got to go. I was getting itchy when I walked in the apartment. I knew that there was a bigger things happening and I needed to move. I needed to give up this apartment. I needed to let go of my childhood and I need to be an adult. And I had to say goodbye to Grand Street and I have to move 10 blocks away. When that was all happening, I did really, truly, truly believe that it was because I was going to be in this relationship. I really, really did. I thought that this was us and this was going to do it and I could do it. We could do it together. Fast forward, he's still in my life. We're friends. No, we're friends. We're great. Everything's great. So what I know that was happening was, what I'm thinking now is that I don't know if I was so much disconnected from that life and my life every day as I was disconnected from being single in Kelley life, in Grand Street, Soho Kelley, or I was going to have to move into girlfriend Kelley, and the struggle was that. It was an internal battle between staying where I was at and moving towards what I was supposed to be doing next, because that's how life was going. I was in a relationship. I was in love. And I lived in a 5-floor walk-up, and he wasn't doing it. So I was in the space where I was like, did I actually leave? Would I have left as quick if it wasn't for him? And was my inner battle between Kelley, the single girl Kelley, and Kelley, the letting go of single life and moving into being the girlfriend Kelley. So I think my struggle was all of it. I can't believe I survived so well and got out unscathed. Look at all the emotional things I was going through, and where were you guys? Giving up this whole life, dad had passed away, mom moved to Vegas, left the Soho Grand, had a new relationship, had an apartment that I was too big for. I was growing out of it. Swear, I'm telling you, I had clothes everywhere. And then I had a new relationship. And I had to do all that on my own. And I did it. And I was scared. And I think I cried. I did actually cry a lot. But the inner turmoil of making the choice or staying. It's like, it felt so much safer to stay. It would be so much safer had I had stayed. But my God, imagine had I stayed. What a weird life that would have been. I could not do five floor walk up at this point. I don't have the knees for a 5-floor walk up, but maybe I would have if I stayed. I'd probably be in better shape. That's the other thing, man. I was in great shape in that apartment. You can't run away mad, right? You have a fight with somebody, you go, I'm going home. And then you get to your apartment, you're like, oh, God, I'm so mad at you. Get to the first floor, and you're like, all right, I'm not that mad. I got to walk slower. But I would storm off and run up my stairs. It was a whole dramatic thing. You try it. If you live in a walk up, don't try to run away from somebody. It's not fun. So growth usually starts with discomfort. And that's what I had. I was just uncomfortable in all the things that used to feel great. Even my couch, even the couch, I was like, oh, I love this couch. But I wonder if, it's uncomfortable, but it's important. Growth is uncomfortable, not just the couch. The couch was fantastic. Growth comes with realizing something internally has shifted before you even know what comes next. Like right now, I'm in menopause. I'm in a moment of transition. Oh, no, not that kind of transition. Not like the doctor thought. I'm in an emotional life transition. Not the other kind of transition, which is only funny if you've watched my podcasts. But I'm in a life transition. I am in between young and old, and I am neither one nor the other. And if you think I'm old, that's not nice. And I have had a lot of inner battles. I've had outer battles. I'd have conversations. I have many, many podcasts talking about it. It's a strange place to be because you're neither there or here nor there. I'm somewhere in between. And that's, for me, the most discomfort in change is like before you get there. I don't want to, let me be very clear. I'm not rushing to be the old lady, but I also have no other option that's feasible. So right now it's embrace where you are now and live in the change, because there's constant changes happening. And now I'm much more open to allowing change to happen without fighting it. I think some people are like that naturally. I needed to grow into that space, and I'm there now. I will go with the flow way better than I did back when I was leaving Soho. Now, so many change happen without our having any part in it. Like, things happen. You can't avoid change. You can't avoid it, right? I tried for years. I've tried so hard that I leaned into the facelift, as you all know. I'm like, I'm not going that easy. I'm going to fight it every step of the way. And I'm very grateful that I did that, because it made more sense to me than an old floppy face did. I was all kinds of wrinkly. So anyway, having a facelift, doing the things that I wanted to do to keep this part of my life flowing the way that I wanted it to go. Like, you could give up, right? And just go, okay, this is it. I'm going to let life do its thing, and people do that, and that's good for you. That was not my role in this. I was like, I got to have at least I got to have a little control. So we're going to nip and tuck when we can. We're going to dress young, and we're going to work out, and we're going to figure out how to make this transition into old age as smooth, easy, and well-dressed as humanly possible. And so that has been my embracing the change. I'm in between, and I'm embracing the in-between by making sure I'm having the best time doing it. Because most of the time we are so controlled. We're controlling our lives, or things are controlling us, your jobs, our spouses, our kids, or whatever it is that you have. And you get to this place, this menopause place, and nothing's controlling you but actual time. It's like, that's it, Father Time. Here we go. Tick tock, tick tock. And I'm good. Just slow the clock down a little bit, or at least make it look a little slower, i.e. facelift. I think a lot of people panic recognizing that their life is changing. I did. I do. I panic. But maybe your life isn't falling apart. Maybe you're just changing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to change. But man, it's uncomfortable. Instead of letting ourselves evolve, a lot of us try to force ourselves into the old version of us that no longer fit. People don't stay stuck because they're lazy. They stay stuck because change is emotionally expensive. And who's got that kind of dough? Doing this podcast was scary for me. This was one of those moments that I thought I knew there was something I had to do. I was in the discomfort of growing, and I didn't know what it was. There was something I was struggling with. I wasn't comfortable. The things that used to bring me joy were not bringing me joy anymore. The things that used to make me happy were no longer making me happy, and you know who you are. Kidding, sort of. But no, things were shifting and I couldn't quite figure out what it was I needed to do next. And then I was like, I had a friend, I did a fake podcast for a little while. We were just playing around on podcasts. We didn't end up doing it. But I got to try this genre out. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And my whole life in travel, my whole life in, I worked at a hotel. I worked in the travel business, and I still do work in travel. That makes sense to me. Hotels, flights, that is a world I know. This was the unknown, and this was scary, and sitting and talking and hoping that people pay attention. Clearly, if you're still here listening, thank you very much for finding me interesting. I appreciate you. But taking the chance, I'm like, who is going to listen? And apparently 44,000 people listen sometimes. So thank you. One of the scariest things when you make a decision that's different than what you usually do is when you tell your friends about it. Telling your family, asking people what they think. First of all, don't do that. Here's the thing with any change, even when I was leaving Soho, telling other people what you're doing. Don't do it. Keep everything a secret. Because once you put it out there, if you don't get the response that you want, you know what happens to us, to me. Then you start doubting your choices. You're like, what do you mean? What am I doing a podcast? Yes, I'm doing. How much is it going to cost? What do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. I was so afraid when I told people. And then, because I listened to all my self-help tapes, you know what self-help people say? Don't tell anybody till you do it. So, season 2 and season 3, I didn't tell anyone until I was in the midst of shooting. Because you know why, you naysayers? Say-nayers? I didn't want to hear your opinion of my life-changing choices, so shut it. And so now I don't tell people until I'm in the middle of doing what I'm doing, because it's scary when you make a new decision for yourself. I was already nervous. The last thing you want is people who think they're being supportive by telling you that you should be doing something else. Zip it. I don't tell anybody what I'm doing now because they scare the crap out of me. So now I do what I'm going to do, and I trust myself, and I might have 1 or 2 people that I bounce something off of, but change is scary. So if you make the decision to make a change and you don't have absolute support around you, don't tell anybody, because you're just going to question yourself. I say this, I want to hear this story myself. This is notes to Kelley. Do what you're going to do what feels right. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be scary. You're going to be nervous. Change is uncomfortable. Like, they tell me that at Pilates. They tell me in my gym. They're like, change is painful and growth hurts. And they're not wrong. All of that is true. So listen to my Pilates instructors and just understand that pain is, growth is painful and something else. That's why I'm not a Pilates instructor. I don't know what the lines are. But anyway, yeah, it's not easy to let go of something old and to move into something new. And then which even weirder, is to have this whole new life and wonder what you would have thought about it had you known this was your life. If anyone would have told me my life today, if I would know myself, if I was a little girl and my little Kelley came to new Kelley because I have a new face, came to old Kelley, little girl Kelley 54, if little Kelley asked my age Kelley what I was doing now, and I told her what I was doing now, she'd be shocked. Like, literally shocked. She'd go home and hide underneath my mom's bed, and she wouldn't talk to anybody. She'd be in the closet for the next 5 years. I can't believe I don't live in the closet with my flashlight and a book. That's where I thought it was going. So, yeah, change is uncomfortable. Change is scary. Change is exhilarating and exciting, and it's the only way to move life forward. We can't stay stagnant. Even if tiny changes, change in routine, change in diet, change of, moving is a tremendous change. It's like they say, death, divorce, and moving, right? Some of the most traumatic things that happen to somebody. I don't recommend moving. It's not fun. But if moving out of your smaller life to be able to have a bigger life is what you need to do, and that doesn't mean the radius or the size of your apartment, I mean you in general, internally, then do it. But if that's not what you need to do, if it's just going to a different restaurant, if it's about calling a different friend, and if it's about just maybe changing jobs, change is important. Change is really important. And says someone who really is a creature of habit, but this was a big one. Doing the podcast and taking a chance on myself, and knowing, most importantly, which was what my point was from the beginning of this whole entire podcast, is that I've left a mark. That was what I wanted to do, because I said Years ago, and I say it often, I never had anyone who told my story because I didn't have children. And so I got to tell my own story. And in that, I am forever grateful for this and for my taking a chance on myself. I'm pretty proud of myself for doing that because forever and ever, I am somewhere in the ethos of the internet. So I have always existed. I will always be. I'm like the alpha and the omega. I'm close to God now. That's how I am. Me and my podcast. Sometimes staying the same clearly feels easier than confronting the unknown, even if the unknown might actually make you happier. I think a lot of people, myself included, confuse comfort for fulfillment. But being comfortable isn't always the same thing as growing. Sometimes comfort is just repetition. It's fear disguised as stability. Important to note, constant change is important. So we're going to jump through my early decisions and my choice to get me here, and we're going to be to the here of it now, the now of it. So the now changes and the things that happen now, day to day. I had a moment when I knew I needed to make some changes, and it was because I had held on to the same thing for so long, i.e. person afraid of change, that I got myself physically sick. This is true. I had shingles. I was getting sick because I had such an inner battle between what I knew I should be doing next and what felt comfortable because it was what I was used to. And I actually had to take myself out of my current situation. This was about 3 years ago. I said, this is what I need to do. I need to detach. I need to go fill up. I need to take a second away from what feels normal, though it's not really happy. When you're in it, you don't know it. Does that sound like, does it make sense to you? You don't really recognize how unhappy a situation can be or how much you've outgrown a situation until you step out of it, or at least I needed to. And I stepped out of it and I took a breath and I thought, okay, I was waiting to exhale here. A little Toni Morrison for anybody who doesn't know who that is. Get the book. Don't watch the movie. I was waiting to exhale and I took a second and I said, this is not right anymore. I am so emotionally, internally at odds with where I am and where I'm supposed to be. And the only person who can make that change is me. I have to do something different. And I chose to leave the situation, explain what I was going through. And that, in fact, was when the relationship took its major change and is now an entirely different situation. We are still friends. I'll put that out there again. I love him very much. He's a great person. No, but that's when my whole life took a change. I stepped away from what was normal, what I was used to, and said, something's got to give, and that something cannot be me. And so I made the decision. And then one thing, it's like dominoes, man, the domino effect of change. One little thing happens and one door closes, another one opens, and here I am sitting in front of a podcast. That person and this person, light years different. There was so much discomfort in making that choice. But I don't think you need to let yourself get there. I think if we're more conscious of our bodies and our souls and what we really need, and when those little things stop bringing us joy, that's a big tell. That was a big tell for me, and I didn't even listen to it. I say all the time, I'm such a hypocrite sometimes. I say all the time to people, God taps you, tap, 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 and you don't listen, then he hits you in the head with a brick. Sorry, God, I make you crazy in my stories. Brick throwing maniac. And it's not, clearly, this is just what works for me. I wasn't listening to my own metaphors about the brick in the head. Because I had the tap, the punch, the pat. I had all the things. I was walking around with God stitches. And I was like, no, this is great. I feel really great about this. And then I almost, imploded. So I don't know if I told you, but I don't like change. Yeah, so we're back to that. But when you do make the decisions to change, or when I have made the decisions to change, they've always worked out. I've made the right choices. And if I make a mistake, it happens. You just reroute. You just shift it a little bit. The longer you avoid necessary change, the more life feels numb instead of fulfilling. So how do you actually move through change without completely spiraling? I think the healthiest people are not the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who actually adapt to it. Because life is seasonal. Because friendships change, careers shift, relationships evolve, priorities change, you change. And resisting every transition just makes the process harder. That doesn't mean you have to have everything figured out overnight. You don't need to have a 5-year plan every time your life starts shifting. Sometimes growth is just trying something new. Let yourself evolve without apologizing for it. Believing in yourself is a flex. I believed in myself I was afraid. It's scary. But the only way to get through a change is for you to allow it to happen. And you've got to show up for yourself. So I know I was really nervous about multiple changes in my life. And had they not happened, I don't know what my world would look like. But I am so grateful that I took the chance and I believed in myself and I trusted myself. And now I am so much more secure in the small day-to-day choices that change everything, the butterfly effect. I think that there are small things we do every single day that do impact the whole of our existence, the whole of our lives. And I'm much more secure in my choices now because I push myself out the door on Grand Street. And I know it might not seem like a big deal, but it was life-changing, imperatively life-changing for me that I did that. And so now I'm a little bit more comfortable in smaller, simple changes. I'm much more comfortable making decisions for myself. I check in with myself. I ask me how I feel about it. I have a whole meeting with myself. I'll text. I actually send myself texts. I don't know if anybody else did. I do that. I write things to me and I send it to myself. I never really argue with myself because I really like me and I'm always right. I would win every fight anyway, right? I trust myself more now. And I think that's because the decisions that I've made, knock on fake wood of whatever it is, they've always worked out. I've been pretty blessed. I think, you can make a choice and it can not go exactly as planned. And that doesn't mean it's failed. It just means it's a different road you got to take. Trust the journey. I wasn't expecting to be sitting in front of a podcast. I did not think that this is what I would end up doing. And it might not be what I end up doing. I'm 54. Who knows? I could do Broadway. Anyway, growth looks a little bit less dramatic than people think, unless it's a facelift or it's me and I'm doing anything different at all. Then it's very dramatic. But it's often small decisions repeated consistently. It's letting yourself become someone new slowly. Some seasons in life are made for rebuilding. So let's get building. Not every phase of life is supposed to feel polished. Eventually, the life that once scared you becomes the life that feels natural. Moral of the story: outgrowing your old life does not mean that you're failing. It usually means that you're growing. And change does not always arrive looking exciting and inspiring. Sometimes it arrives being uncomfortable, uncertain, and emotionally messy. But staying the same forever will not protect you from discomfort either. So let yourself evolve. Let yourself change your mind. Let yourself move into the new seasons of your life without feeling guilty for leaving the old ones behind. And honestly, maybe there's a reason why these feelings always feel harder during seasonal shifts. Summer has a way of making people reevaluate everything: who they are, what they want, what they've outgrown, and what they're ready for next. So this summer, we're embracing change, even when it's uncomfortable, even when we have no idea what comes next, because staying the same forever isn't the goal. Growing is. On that note, don't forget to subscribe, rate Still Can't Cook 5 stars, send this episode to your friend who's currently having an existential crisis over whether they've outgrown their entire life. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for showing up for another episode of Still Can't Cook. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, on YouTube or any other podcast provider. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, please follow us at Still Can't Cook. Love to have you guys back every week. So happy that you joined us and look forward to seeing you next week.